Is Mike Vanderbough here? Please help me welcome Mike Vanderbough, who was one of the guys that broke Fast and Furious.
My name is Mike Vanderbough, and I'm a smuggler. I'm from the great free state of Alabama, and I'm also a 3%er. If you need to pigeonhole my politics, I'm a Christian libertarian. I believe in free men, free markets, the rule of law under the Founders' Republic, and that the Constitution extends to everyone regardless of race, creed, color, or religion. I most especially believe in the right of the people to keep and bear arms as the ultimate guarantor of liberty in this country. Now, I have also been called a seditionist by current members of the administration. If faithfully fulfilling my oath to the Founders' Republic and unrelenting hostility to those who would undermine and overthrow it makes me a seditionist, then I cheerfully plead guilty. The 3% movement that I founded has been denounced by that paragon of moral virtue, Bill Clinton, and I am a perennial honorable mention in the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of dangerous folks. I have even been the subject of an 18.5-minute rant by Rachel Madcow on MSNBC, and the current Attorney General of the United States knows and despises me by name because of the Fast and Furious scandal that my friend David Codrea and I broke on the internet back in December 2010. Eric Holder would not be surprised to learn that the feeling is mutual. Now, the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence calls me an insurrectionist because I don't believe, as they do, in a government monopoly of violence, but rather in a literal interpretation of the Second Amendment as a bulwark against tyranny. Well, as my friend Kurt Hoffman says, it is better to be despised by the despicable than admired by the admirable. And I suppose my remarks today here reinforce my enemy's opinions of me, but I think I can bear the burden. Now, yesterday was the anniversary of the battles of Lexington and Concord in 1775, but also of the liquidation of the Warsaw Ghetto in 1943. And that of the Branch Davidians in Waco 50 years later to the day. Two examples of what happens when governments exercise a monopoly of violence. It is proper then to contemplate the lessons of that date in history, April 19th, then, now, and in the near future. What I say now, I say with reluctance, with sadness and not a little bit of dread, but say it I must. For silence in the face of tyranny implies consent, and I do not consent. Neither do I believe that you consent, for you wouldn't be here today if you did. What I am about to say is not easy to say, nor is it easy to hear, and many of you will not like it. Sorry, I'm not very good at this. An unconstitutional law is void. It has no effect, so says American jurisprudence, the standard legal text. And that's been upheld by centuries of American law. An unconstitutional law is void. Now that is certainly true. But the tricky part is, how do we make that point when the local, state, and federal executive and legislative branches, as well as the courts, are in the hands of the domestic enemies of the Constitution. Everyone who is currently trying to take away your right to arms starts out by saying, I support the Second Amendment. Let me tell you a home truth that we know down in Alabama. Barack Obama supports the Second Amendment just about as much as Adolf Hitler appreciated Jewish culture or Joseph Stalin believed in individual liberty. Believe what politicians do, not what they say. Because the lie is the attendant of every evil. So what shall we do about this current spate of tyranny that's breaking out all over, including, I'm sad to say, your great state? Now, the facsimile of a semi-automatic pistol that some of you hold in your hands was smuggled into your state from the South. It was manufactured in Georgia, transshipped to Alabama, and it came across your state line in the trunk of a car. Now, the fact that the authorities of your state have not yet banned sponge guns, although I understand they recently tried, is immaterial. It could have easily been a whole trunk of real pistols. Indeed, before this year, no one thought that other firearms and related items would ever be banned. But they were. They have been. No one thought that the authorities of your state would pass laws making criminals out of the previously law-abiding. But they did. If they catch you violating their unconstitutional laws, they will, when they please, send armed men to work their will upon you. And people, innocent of any crime save the one these tyrants created, will die resisting them. And yet, despite the cost, these unconstitutional laws must be resisted. For if not now, when? And if not us, who? This is no longer a slippery slope leading to firearm registration and eventual confiscation. It is a precipice that some states, including yours, have already plunged over, and that the federal government threatens to follow. Arrests are happening now in New York. When, if not now, shall we resist? Will we allow ourselves to be shoved back once again from the free exercise of our God-given, natural, and inalienable rights? Shoved back from the traditional exercise of our liberties once more? How long has this been going on? Yet all we've done is mutter and complain, but we've backed up. This is how we got to this place. We never shoved back when we could, and do so without violence. And so now we are here. Where does it stop? When we are all disarmed slaves? The founders knew how to answer such tyranny. When Captain John Parker, one of the 3% of American colonists who actively took the field against the king during the Revolution, mustered his Minutemen Company on Lexington Green, it was in a demonstration of armed civil disobedience. He might have retreated at the British approach. Indeed, initially he had planned to do that, but he didn't. He might have ordered his men to lay down their arms, but he didn't. His defiance was silently but plainly stated. A veteran of the French and Indian Wars, he did not want a war. He knew intimately the horrors of war. But he also knew that some things are worse than war. The British could not tolerate his silent defiance, and someone fired a shot. But even before the shot heard around the world, the colonists understood their weaknesses and their military needs, and they did something about it. They smuggled. They smuggled Dutch gunpowder. They smuggled French flints. They smuggled tents and uniform cloth and artillery and ammunition. Boston was the high headquarters of anti-British smuggling, and John Hancock was its prime minister. Connecticut was a small empire built on patriot smuggling. The colonists knew what to do, and they did it, regardless of risk, regardless of all the king's ministers and the king's soldiery. They did what was required. They defied the king. They resisted his edicts. They evaded his laws, and they smuggled. Lord above, did they smuggle. And now we find ourselves in a similar situation. The new King Barak and his minions have determined to disarm us, and we must determine to resist them. No one wants a new civil war, except apparently the anti-constitutional tyrants who pass these laws and their media toadies who cheer them on. But one is staring us in the face. Let me repeat that. A civil war is staring us in the face. To think otherwise is to whistle past the graveyard of our own history. We must, if we wish to avoid armed conflict, get across this message to the collectivists who have declared their appetites for our liberty, our property, and our lives. When democracy turns to tyranny, the armed citizenry still gets to vote. Now, just like King George, such people will not care nor modify their behavior by what you say, no matter how loudly or in what numbers you say it. They will only pay attention to what you do. So defy them. Resist these laws. Evade them. Smuggle in what they command you not to have. Only by our acts will they be impressed. Then, if they mean to have a civil war, they will at least have been informed of the unintended consequences of their tyrannical actions. Again, I say, defy, resist, evade, smuggle. If you wish to stay free and to pass down that freedom to your children's children, you can do no less than become the lawbreakers that they have unconstitutionally made of you. Accept that fact, embrace it, and resolve to be the very best and most successful lawbreakers you can be. Now, one last thing before I go, sort of a personal note. On Thursday, I smuggled a half dozen 30-round AR-15 magazines into your state in deliberate disobedience of the state dictate. So to Martin Looney, Mike Williams, Larry Cafaro, and John McKinney, I'd like to say this. I just committed a Class D felony. You tyrannical morons. Prove it. And catch me if you can. And I'll tell you something else. When the new ammo restrictions go into effect the first week in July, I'll be back with 2 crates of 7.62 by 39 ball ammunition. And I will transfer said ammunition into the hands of a Connecticut citizen without the state's permission and without any paperwork. And after I break their unconstitutional laws that are null and void again, I'll be sitting in Frank Pepe's Pizza down in New Haven waiting for Looney and company to come arrest me. Anytime they think they can make it stick, and anytime they feel froggy. Thank you very much.
I want one big yell.